So, Alan, tell us all about your book.
Well, it's a book that I wrote a couple of years ago now. I read a story saw a book by a certain chap called David Bedford. And it was called Finding the Fourth Beatle. And when I read through it, I saw my name mentioned a couple of times. So I phoned up David Bedford and said, could I have a copy of your book, because I'm in it? He said, you can, he said, but you have to pay for it. So I did. And of course, when I wrote my book, I sent him a copy free of charge. Anyway, we become good friends. I'm here with him in his front room now, and wants me to tell you about the book. Well, the book basically is my life story as a young rock and roll singer in the late 50s. Follows much the same story as teenagers all over the country at that time. We were the first, if you were born in 1940, 41, 42, 43, you were the first era of teenagers to miss National Call-Up. So come the end of 1950, when this rock and roll thing happened, we all wanted to do it. But initially we got to blame Lonnie Donegan, because he was the man who showed us all that we could get on the stage with a guitar, a T-chest bass and a washboard, basically make some music and people listen to it and probably buy it. Then of course we heard one night Dickie Valentine singing, Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Next day there was 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, wow, what's that? And we were all caught, all captured. Then along came Little Richard and Elvis Presley and Chuck Berry, wow. We all idolised him. Gene Vincent, they were the Gene Vincent and Chuck Berry really were the first main rock and rollers we all latched onto. Yes, Elvis was good in his early records, but the sloppy records he made later on we didn't like a lot. He had a good voice, maybe, but he made more money than I've ever made. But basically, the good story in this book is a story in 1961 when the Beatles appeared in Aldershot, my hometown in Hampshire. Sam Leach was their manager at the time, and he brought them down there hoping that he would entice some impresarios and managers and record producers from London to come and meet the Beatles, see the Beatles. Well, the Aldershot Palais, where the gig was my regular gig every week. And when we were told we couldn't play there in a month's time, because we were given a month's notice, oh, okay, well, who's on then? And Bob Potter, the man who owned the ballroom at the time, he said, I've hired the room out to somebody called Sam Leach. And he's putting on a battle of bands, North against the South. Who's on, Bob? I've got no idea who's on, I said up to him. So, anyway, the chappie in the ballroom just around the corner, the central ballroom, funnily enough, after a bit of discussion with my drummer, he had a cancellation that same night. So we arranged for my band, who would have been at the Aldershot Palais, to play at the central ballroom around the corner, maybe 750 yards away. Consequently, because we were the local heroes, if you like, we had a big sellout of 300 odd people. And the Beatles had, according to the stories, 18 people. But we led to believe there was only 11. The 18 were made up of the 4 Beatles, Sam Leach, Dave Matthews, the photographer, and
Terry McCann.
Terry McCann, the roadie. That was the 18. And the 11 that were there apparently didn't pay to get in anyway. So, of course, they lost a lot of money. The Beatles didn't get paid, and consequently, they came back. They stopped off in London at Johnny Casanova's place, I think it was, and played a bit there. And when they got back to Liverpool, they informed Sam Leach that they'd been approached by somebody else, and they were going, because of the Aldershot fiasco, they were going to go with him. And that was Brian Epstein. So you could say this story, this book, led to the Beatles becoming famous. Because if that story hadn't have happened, when you read the story, you'll see how it happened. If the story hadn't happened the way it is written in here, they would have stayed with Sam Leach, come back to Liverpool, and the world probably would never have heard of the Beatles again. And that's all in this book. It's 27 pages of connection of that story in this book to my life story. There's also things in here about, I was the first person ever to call Rod Stewart Rod the Mod, would you believe? Farmer Town Hall. There's pieces in here about Gary Glitter, before he glittered, if you like. And also Rick Wakeman's in here, many men, Chuck Berry's in here, loads and loads of people from the rock and roll era who I met, or to say that better, had the privilege of meeting me. And I can remember the Chuck Berry story. We were doing a show with him, and of course when he was on the stage I couldn't talk to him. When I was on the stage he couldn't talk to me, but when I was on the stage I could see my brother sat in the dressing room talking to him for half an hour. I was dead jealous. Yeah. So if anybody wants this book, it can be bought online. It can be bought from Wikipedia. But if you'd like a signed copy, a.hope, H-O-P-E, hope, 7070 at ntlworld.com. And a signed copy can be arranged especially for you.
Now, of course, as well as your music story, you've got your political story. Tell us about the Monster Raving Loony Party.
Well, as I said earlier on, way back in the early days of rock and roll, if you were anywhere in England at some time or other, you would have seen and heard Screaming Lord Such. And he and I became great friends. In fact, I used to work with his band quite a lot because Screaming Lord Such couldn't sing to save his life. He was a very good act. He was only good for 2 minutes. So consequently, he used to come and work for my manager, Bob Potter, who I mentioned earlier on, the Aldershot Palais. And I used to go out with him and his band, and he'd do his 2 45-minute spots, and I'd do a couple of little spots as well. And we got to know each other pretty well. He started as National Teenage Party way back in 1964, or 63 it was, I believe. And then when I retired from the music business altogether, it was after the rock and roll I went into American country music style of music, which was very, very good. I liked that a lot. I bought a hotel down in Devon, me and my wife. And lo and behold, in Plymouth one day I saw Screaming Lord Such was on an advert in the paper. So I phoned him up and said, "Do you remember me? I remember you." "Yeah, I remember you. You remember me." "Well, on your way back, you've got to come past Ashburton, where I live, up the A38. Come in and see me." And he did. And lo and behold, that was March time. And I said, "Well, tell you what, David, June the 16th is my birthday. Come on back up then, and you can stay a week if you want. I don't mind. You know, have some fun." Anyway, June the 16th, he turned up with the drummer and a guitarist. I forgot all about the conversation actually. And he played, and it was good fun. He became, in fact, people would say that I resurrected him again. Well, perhaps I did for a little while. But it was June the 16th, 1982, when we formed the official Monster Raving Loony Party. He and I. He was the leader. I was the chairman and deputy leader at the time. We kept that party going until 1999 under that guise, when Screaming Lord Such decided, lo and behold, he didn't want to be with us anymore. And subsequently, he wasn't. He actually hung himself, but I expect most of you will know that anyway. But the upshot is, we started that party on June the 16th, 1982. He hung himself on June the 16th, 1999. And that date, I'll never forget, obviously because it's my birthday, that date would never have crossed his mind. Sheer coincidence. How amazing is that? So I've been the leader of the party ever since, and we're still here now in 2023. I am now Britain's longest serving party political leader. I've just overtaken Clement Attlee. I've done 23 years. And I'm up here at the moment in Liverpool talking to Dave Bedford because I've just been the candidate in the Northwest Lancs constituency of Ormskirk, that area, Scammerdale, that area, in the election 2 days ago. And we were there, and that was my 31st parliamentary seat. And we've never ever once saved our deposit. But it's all good fun. We are the party that's on everybody's side, no matter what political persuasion they may be. So bear in mind in future, if you see us in your area, if you don't usually vote, vote unusually. Vote for me.